We are Tom and Lindsay. We are traveling across the United States on an Amtrak rail pass. In today's journey, we are traveling aboard the Amtrak Cascades from Portland, Oregon up to Seattle, Washington. A trip that did not quite go as we had planned. Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new Trains Are Awesome video. I'm Tom.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we're here at Portland Union Station. It is a beautiful morning here in Portland. We came in yesterday afternoon, had some time to explore the city, and this morning we're headed to Seattle on the Amtrak Cascades. Now, I did a lot of planning and trying to figure out how to ride a very specific train, the Talgo 8s. And so I was waking up pretty excited this morning. I got a phone call from Amtrak saying that there was an equipment issue at Eugene. So our train is starting here in Portland, presumably with other equipment. So there is a big chance that we are not going to ride the Talgos today, but we're going to go inside and find out. Oh, train's not here yet. I don't think. Maybe it's over there. Alright, so before I start the video, in my experience, people sometimes tend to get a little bit upset whenever anything negative is brought up in a video. You guys know me, I'm a positive guy, but I do like to keep it real. I've made several videos this past year where I'm overwhelmingly positive about something, but I don't shy away from some of the negative aspects, and yet people can still get so worked up over the negatives. If you watch this video and really think everything was fine and dandy, feel free to share your thoughts. But I've noticed a lot of people argue based on false assumptions, so let's clear the air and keep the following in mind. I love trains and I think that they are the best way to travel. I love Amtrak. This is not my first Amtrak experience, not remotely, and I am very well aware of the political and financial constraints that Amtrak has to operate under. Today's video does not reflect what I think of the Cascade service or Amtrak as a whole. I simply had a set of expectations for this trip and those weren't met, which to me seems like the definition of disappointment. In fact, the Cascades is probably one of Amtrak's better services. Definitely not a prison train. Well, because of the issues in Eugene, the engineer is not here in Portland yet, so it's about 15 minutes after departure time and we're all just still waiting here. A little update. Bless you. I thought it was going to be a matter of minutes, but it's going to be 2 hours until we get to leave. At first, there was not a lot of information available about the delay, including how long it would take. So let's just talk about the train we're going to ride, eventually. The Amtrak Cascades is a passenger train service financially supported by the states of Washington and Oregon. The line officially runs from Eugene, Oregon, through Portland and Seattle, across the border to Vancouver, British Columbia, though not a single service actually runs the entire journey. The core section between Portland and Seattle sees 6 round trips a day. The majority of Cascade services use Amtrak Horizon cars. These boxy-looking tin cans were built between 1988 and 1990. I don't really like them. The lighting is harsh, the ride quality is not fantastic, many times the seats are falling apart, and they're not exactly weatherproof. Luckily, there is an alternative on the Cascades. This is the only service in the US that uses the truly unusual Talgo 8 sets. Talgo is a company based in Spain that builds a unique type of train. Trains run on wheels. I think most people know that. But the wheels of the train are usually attached to this thing. Known as a truck in American English, I will be referring to them as bogies, since that's a more internationally accepted term and it's a lot more fun to say. One bogie has 2 axles, and each axle has 2 wheels, so 4 wheels per bogie. Simple enough. Traditionally, every rail car rests on 2 bogies, one on each end. However, in Europe, most new trains are being built with 1 bogie placed in between 2 cars. This is what's known as a Jacob's bogie. Now, the Talgo takes that to an extreme. 2 cars rest on 2 wheels. These wheels are not connected to each other by an axle, and this means that the cars are much shorter because they have just those 2 wheels to rest on. There are only a few Talgo 8 sets on the Cascades, and I really wanted to ride one. So I did a lot of research, and basically I learned that if the business class tickets on a particular trip are cheaper than on the other trips, it's likely to be a Talgo. I cross-referenced this information with recent railfan spots, and I was pretty confident that the 8 o'clock departure would be the Talgo. Well, I was right, sort of. Our train, which originated at Eugene, was a Talgo, but the engineer had gotten sick and the train remained stuck in Eugene. We had to wait at Portland for the replacement crew to drive up all the way from Eugene. Well, I was gonna wait until boarding to see if we have the Talgos or not, but if we're gonna wait here for multiple hours, then I'm just gonna go look at the platform. Horizon cars. Horizon cars. Thousands of miles from home, hours of careful planning. Sometimes things just remain out of our control. Let's board the train and finally make our way to Seattle. At least there's plenty of storage space for our bags. So these are Amtrak Horizon cars. They're very popular around the Midwest, or at least they were, so I've been on them quite a few times. Not riding the Talgos, it's disappointing, but it was a risk with taking this train because there are only very few in service. Horizon car seats are still more comfortable than most commuter trains, most European trains, but in terms of cushioning, legroom, and amenities around the seat, it is a little bit of a lesser quality than most other Amtrak trains.
I'm your conductor. Got it running back and forth. It's just me today, trying to do it all, so I appreciate your patience as we make our way up there to Seattle. As we depart, I have a few bits of information for you. You can find safety information cards located in the seat back pocket in front of you. There you can find their train information as well as emergency exit locations. Shoes are required when walking throughout the train, and there is no smoking, vaping, or using of e-cigarettes anywhere on board the train. If you are caught smoking on board the train today, the next stop will be yours. Once again, no smoking anywhere on board the train. Consumption of private alcohol is not permitted on board the train. However, you can purchase alcoholic beverages, food, snacks, all sorts of good stuff in the cafe. It's located all the way at the end of the train. Once again, all the way at the end of the train, look outside, see which way we're going. Go the other way as far as you can go, take you right to that cafe. And folks, restrooms are located in each car except the food service car. Once again, in each car, one end or the other is where you'll find those restrooms. And folks, next stop will be Vancouver, Washington. After we leave Vancouver, I'll come through and scan everyone's tickets. Once again, folks, next stop, Vancouver. Thank you.
Almost immediately, we cross the Columbia River, which forms the border between Oregon and Washington. At 1,200 miles, it is the largest river in the Pacific Northwest. Our first stop is Vancouver, Washington. Funny how one train service can serve two stations with the same name. Now Chicago is like, hold my deep dish. All is not lost, however. I may have been on these Horizon cars many times. I've never been in the Club Dinette car, so we're going to make the most of this experience and go see what they have to offer. The funny thing about the Cascades is, just like the Downeaster in the state of Maine, they have a different menu than other Amtrak trains. I decided to buy some of their unique offerings this time. These are some of my favorite potato chips, and I also tried the clam chowder. We briefly stop at Kelso Longview Station. Though it is located in the city of Kelso, it also serves the nearby larger city of Longview. Let's check out the Horizon car bathroom. The toilet is basically a hole in a metal bench. Perhaps this is an homage to the Middle Ages or the Roman Empire. And then there's the sink, which you can only activate by pressing the nozzle up with your hand. Some of the design choices in these Horizon cars are truly baffling. No, I didn't have an accident in my pants. I just sprayed water on myself when I tried to wash my hands. Suddenly that excuse becomes a lot more believable, doesn't it? Anyways, the Horizon car chapter in the history book of the Cascades is coming to a close pretty soon. Amtrak is ordering brand new Aero train sets for a ton of different routes around the country. These are Siemens Venture cars with Charger locomotives that will run as permanently coupled train sets. The American railjet, basically. The Cascades is the very first service scheduled to receive these Aero trains, hopefully by 2026, and they will come in this sweet Cascades livery. I need to come back sometime before then, though, to try riding the Talgo sets again. So that's the future of the Cascades. What about the history? For most of the 20th century, train service between Portland and Seattle was offered by the Great Northern, Northern Pacific, and Union Pacific Railways. These companies, despite competing with one another, honored each other's tickets, basically allowing passengers to take any train between the two cities. In 1971, Amtrak took over most intercity passenger trains in the United States. In the 70s, Amtrak ran 3 trains along this corridor. There was the Coast Starlight, which ran all the way down to California, and then there were the Puget Sound and the Mount Rainier, 2 local trains. The Puget Sound was replaced by the Pioneer, a long-distance train coming from Chicago. In 1972, Amtrak also began service between Seattle and Vancouver, a train known as the International. This was their very first international service. Another train, this one called the Willamette Valley, was also added to the Portland-Seattle corridor. By 1981, however, both the Willamette Valley and the International were canceled. In 1994, the first Talgo equipment arrived. It added a trip to the corridor, first briefly being known as the Northwest Talgo and later being renamed the Mount Adams. The Mount Rainier was extended south to Eugene in 1995, eventually being renamed the Cascadia. Service to Vancouver was also restored, this time being called the Mount Baker, and finally in 1998 all services were rebranded as the Cascades, the name they carry to this day. We are now traveling along the Point Defiance bypass. Previously, Cascades trains had taken a slow route along the Puget Sound. However, to speed up the trip, the bypass was modernized and reopened in 2017. Unfortunately, the very first Cascades train to use the bypass derailed, leading to the loss of 3 lives. The line remained closed until 2021 when it reopened again. Since then, trains have been using the bypass without incident. Seeing all these Sounder trains outside means that we are nearing Tacoma Dome Station. Sounder is the commuter rail serving the Seattle area, and the trains share tracks with the Cascades from Lakewood all the way north to Everett. We will soon arrive at Tacoma Dome Station, named after the nearby sports arena. Tacoma is the 3rd largest city in the state of Washington after Seattle and Spokane. It won't be long now until we reach Seattle. I have to admit, the views immediately outside of the window are not extremely impressive for Amtrak standards, but it is super cool to look outside and see Mount Rainier towering above the landscape. Mount Rainier is the tallest mountain in the Cascade Range, topping out at over 14,400 feet, or 3,900 meters. It is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world since scientists expect an eruption to happen in the near future, and such an eruption could cause quite a lot of damage. Our total journey time today was a little under 3.5 hours, which is about how long it normally takes. Unfortunately, because of the severe delay that we had, we arrived in Seattle well into the afternoon, even though we were hoping to get here before noon. The Cascades is a route with a lot of potential. I think the new trains will be a big improvement. Just this past December, extra frequencies were added to the route, but still, for a corridor between 2 large cities that are situated relatively so close to each other, I think the frequency of service really needs to be much higher. In the event of a delay like ours, we really should not have to wait that long. I hope service eventually transforms into some sort of northwest corridor similar to what we have here in the Northeast. Pulling into Seattle's beautiful King Street station, our train was parked right next to one of the Talgo 8 trains that I wanted to ride so badly. Though I guess that experience will be saved for another trip. At least I got to get a good look at the train.
About 3 hours late, we made it to Seattle King Street Station.
King Street Station is the main station for both Amtrak and Sounder rail service.
Wow, this is a gorgeous station.
I will give you a more detailed tour in a few weeks when we review the Amtrak Empire Builder, but for now, we want to go out and explore Seattle, so we are going to go hop on the light rail. Subscribe to Trains Are Awesome to follow along with our adventures in Seattle. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.